let's move on now to the biggest piece of news this entire offseason. It shook the hockey world when the Carolina Hurricanes signed Jesperi Kotkaniemi to an offer sheet. 1 year, 6.1 million. The Montreal Canadiens had a week to match the offer. And unless you've been living under a rock, you know that the Montreal Canadiens did not match the offer, meaning that Jesperi Kotkaniemi is now a member of the Carolina Hurricanes. The Habs got a first and third round pick in the 2022 NHL draft as compensation. The Montreal Canadiens then turned around and sent a first and second round pick to the Arizona Coyotes for Christian Dvorak to fill that role at center that Jesperi Kotkaniemi left behind. And we've talked about this on a previous show. I thought it was an incredible troll job by the Carolina Hurricanes, just how they executed the entire offer sheet. You got to follow them on Twitter if you haven't done so already. It's one of the most entertaining accounts in sports. But anyway, so a lot of people were turning around, and I want to say it's mostly Habs fans who said, they trolled themselves. This is stupid. They overpaid Kotkaniemi. He only scored 5 goals last season. Now it's 1 year, 6.1. They're ruining their salary cap, this and that. But this guy's 21 years old. You're overpaying for 1 year to get the player. And, you're giving up the compensation. Obviously, the Habs got a first and third round pick. But Carolina clearly believes in this player. And he's young enough that he can still continue to get better and turn his career around. I mean, obviously, it's been a slow start to his career after being a top 3 pick in the draft. But Lepore, give me your take on this offer sheet situation and how it all went down.
It was awesome. It was, as I like to say, it was A+ entertainment. The troll job by Carolina was incredible. It forced Bergevin to give a press conference that everyone tuned in for. And then it caused, 6-7 days of discussions as to whether or not the Habs were going to match or let him walk. We talked about it on the show. I remember we were pretty up in the air thinking we wouldn't be surprised either way. But it is what it is now. It's interesting to see if that strategy, because people are saying how they overpaid him. Yeah, that may be the case, but they can extend him at a lower price. People are forgetting that. And they were talking about it on another podcast I was listening to and asking the question of if this will be the new strategy for the offer sheet. You don't see it too often in the NHL. You never see it in the NHL when a guy signs for less than his current deal, or AAV. But heck, if that's what it took to get the player to overpay him for 1 year, and then in the new year, they give him an extension at 4 or 5 times whatever is reasonable for that player, you can't really argue with Carolina's strategy. And then there's also the matter of the player. People forget too, with these offer sheets, the players have to sign them and agree to the terms. They're not obligated to sign that offer sheet. So for him, I mean, someone put $6.1 million in front of him with, again, he's still RFA. He can still get extended. And then I'm going to get my value anyway. Why wouldn't he sign it? The agent's probably, that doesn't happen too often. The agent's probably saying, bro, you're not worth this. You better sign this deal because you're not going to get this with Montreal. So smart move by Carolina at this point anyway. It'll be one of those ones that'll be talked about for years because we'll see what happens with this kid's career. We'll see what heights he hits. Imagine he becomes a legit number 1 center. I don't think he will. I've never really been a fan of the player. I'm not to say I don't think he's a good player. I'm just saying based on the fact that he was a 3rd overall pick and the expectations that he was going to be a legit number 1 center in the National Hockey League. So I don't have this incredible prediction for KK, but it's going to be interesting for years to come to see how Canadians fans react to his play and to see if Carolina hit a home run or failed miserably. So it's gonna be fun, man. Like I said, this stuff doesn't happen too often in the National Hockey League, that we can just talk about drama and stuff off the ice and almost a personality aspect to the National Hockey League. So I love it, man. I love it.
Yeah, I'm so happy this happened this offseason. It's exactly what the NHL offseason needed, because nothing was happening for a while. And then this
Actually,
bomb
nothing
dropped.
was happening. Yeah, it was like nothing was happening.
So like this was desperately needed. But I'm on the record as saying that I didn't think the Habs should match the offer for Kotkaniemi, because you're getting a first and third round pick as compensation. And like Lepore was just alluding to, I don't believe Jesperi Kotkaniemi is ever going to be a number one center. And I think when you come into the league as a top pick and you have all this pedigree, you find out pretty early whether this player is the real deal or not. And you look at their production, but you also look at the eye test as well, right? Does this person pop off the screen? Are they really fast? Do they have a lot of skill and talent? And you can see those things almost immediately with certain players, where with Kotkaniemi, it's just not there. I know he's only 21 years old, but I just don't see, and I think he's going to get better. I really do. Like, I don't think he's going to continue at the same pace he's on, scoring 5 goals in 56 games. I think he's going to get better, but just projecting him moving forward, I think he profiles more as maybe a second or third line center, like maybe your second line center at best. Yeah. And maybe I'm totally off here. Maybe we're both totally off here, and he's just going to take the next step and turn into a number one centerman. But even looking at Carolina, like I was looking at some of their reporters on Twitter, and they were saying that Kotkaniemi, who obviously was a centerman with the Habs, is most likely going to be slotted in on the wing with Carolina.
Yeah.
Because they got a lot of center depth. I mean, just going through their roster, they got Aho, Trocheck, and Jordan Staal as their top 3 centers. So if you think that those guys are solidified as the 1, 2, 3, then where do you put Kotkaniemi, right? At that point, you pretty much got to slot him in on the wing and see if he can contribute in that area. So,
yeah, to your point about like how he looks at this point in his career, it's so funny. Like, it's like people haven't realized it yet. These kids who come in, the ones who are the absolute 5-star studs, they're good right away. And like even the Montreal example, like Caulfield and Suzuki, they're difference makers. Like, you have to be aware, like, to use like old cheesy terminology, they're always a threat, and you have to be aware of where they are anytime they're on the ice. I don't feel that with KK. Like, and that's not to say he's not going to end up being a good player. It's just he's not at that level, and it's unlikely he'll get to that level. I remember Leafs and like the Leafs fans did the same thing with Kadri back in the day. He came in, he was a high pick, the hype from junior. And this whole thing of like a number one center, it's like, man, like go through every draft. Like, number one centers are hard to get. Like, I'd like to even see like remove like number one picks, like number one overall picks, where like the top centers in each draft were drafted and like what they are now. Like, it's legit hard to get a number one center. So like I said, I remember like the Leafs having these expectations with Kadri, and like he's Nazem Kadri. He's a good player. He's a solid player in the National Hockey League, but he's not a franchise-changing player. Whereas like those guys I mentioned before, like Caulfield and Suzuki, they changed the Montreal Canadiens. Like, the outlook of Montreal. I'll put it this way. Imagine Montreal didn't have those guys right now. Like, things,
it'd be rough.
It'd be rough. Like, there's a lot of debate with the Montreal Canadiens right now as to where they are and what their expectations should be. But I think what Canadiens fans can hold on to, and they should hold on to, is the fact that they have these 2 young studs who are exciting, score a lot of points, and should be part of the organization for years to come. So, just to the point with KK, good player, good young player, franchise-changing player. I don't think so. And I got to say it, like, I think Montreal made the right play. I really do.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you could see, just based on their decision-making, that they didn't really view Kotkaniemi as a part of their future. Just looking at how he got healthy scratched 3 times during the Stanley Cup playoffs, once against the Leafs in the first round, a couple of times in the Stanley Cup final. They sent him down to the AHL in his second season. He got sent down to the Laval Rocket for a period of time. So this is a guy that I think they were frustrated in terms of his development and the speed of his development, or I should say lack thereof. I mean, I think they were waiting for him to take that next step, and he just simply wasn't showing it, even though, again, like I said, he's only 21 years old. So yeah, I think it was a good, solid decision here by the Montreal Canadiens to take the draft pick compensation.